How much money do you think it costs to hold a good Counter-Strike tournament? Let's figure it out together. Well, for starters, $1 million will go to the prize pool, and then we have to rent a studio and an arena, hire employees, and cover travel support for all the teams. Okay, what if the overall budget is $25 million? That kind of sounds like some pie-in-the-sky kind of dream, don't you think? I mean, really, who in their right mind would invest so much money into a Counter-Strike event? Well, actually, a few years ago, there was such a tournament, or a league to be more precise, with a huge budget like this. It was created by two big orgs, Cloud9 and Immortals Gaming Club, with the help of Duncan Thorin Shields as creative director. We don't exaggerate anything, and don't play with facts here. These guys really had $25 million to run a CSGO league. Just think about that. That's more than Team Spirit had won on 2 The Internationals in total. But sadly, their league had failed so miserably that many Counter-Strike fans don't even remember their name today. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, because you're watching CYBERSHOKE, and today we'll tell you how to raise $25 million for a CSGO league and disappoint everyone. Do you want to enhance your skills and get better at Counter-Strike? Check out our servers. We have 17 different game modes with a lot of locations in Europe and North America. Surf, DM, retake, you name it, we have it. We also have a premium subscription that doesn't give you any advantages over other players, but has a lot of cool features. Take a look at the missions. Missions are a set of tasks that you need to complete on our servers so you can earn tokens. Using them, you can open different cases or take part in sweepstakes for skins and devices with worldwide free shipping. We'll put a link in the description. Let's go back to December 2019. Insider DK amazes the CS community with information about a mythical league from the USA with a code name B-Site and a $2 million total prize pool for 2 years. This league is a co-project of two big orgs, Cloud9 and Immortals Gaming Club, and they plan of nothing short than knocking ESL off their throne in the CSGO league market. They picked a very simple strategy for battling ESL. B-Site should be held on the same dates as the ESL Pro League, so the teams wouldn't be able to participate there. Of course, the obvious question to ask then would be, what exactly does B-Site offer to teams to give them a reason to switch from ESL? Don't worry, we'll talk about that a little bit later. But let's just say that even Astralis seriously considered joining B-Site. Back then, they were the strongest team in the world, and other teams looked up to them. So securing Astralis meant having a lot of strong rosters on the participants list. In a month, DK revealed that the technical side of things, including production, would be run by FACEIT. It's important to understand that by that moment, FACEIT had already run 8 seasons of their league ECS, and they were the only real competition for ESL. Without ECS, ESL would have total domination in the market on CSGO leagues. So when DK said that FACEIT closed their league in order to run this new project, everyone understood that B-Site wasn't a joke. It also got leaked that the league would be under a franchise format, like continental events in League of Legends. Let's talk about what this means. Each organization that takes part in the league has the official status of partner, which basically indicates that they invested $2 million in the league's development. This means that only the big orgs with fat wallets get into the league. The prize pool, $2 million for 2 years, is divided among the teams by where they placed at the end of each season. But there's no way to get kicked out of the league. If your team finishes in last place, they will still be invited to the next season since you've already invested so much money to get there. But how do organizations make a profit from that? What's the point of paying $2 million if you can just take part in another free tournament? Well, as always, the devil's in the details. Let's dig into it. You see, each org that made that $2 million investment becomes an official co-owner of the league. And when the league becomes popular and makes money from sponsorship deals, every shareholder gets their cut. Thus, if everything goes according to plan, the orgs get a good profit from their investments. Alright, so we see that Immortals and Cloud9 wanted to create a new CSGO league, and they had such big ambitions that FACEIT even closed a pretty successful ECS to join them. But the big question remains, how on earth did they plan on talking organizations into paying a $2 million fee when CSGO already has ESL Pro League? It was Thorin who had an answer to this question. Duncan wasn't just a creative director of the league, he was its visionary. Thorin was sure that the CSGO pro scene was slowly dying, and someone needed to step in and do something about it. He thought that their company was that someone. Shields promised that FLASHPOINT, that was the name that they picked for the new league, would be held in a new way, which would point out the individuality of each player. Thorin said that they built the format in order to create a lot of drama and scandals between the teams. For instance, at one particular stage, the teams had to pick an opponent for an upcoming game and then explain their choice at a panel discussion. This way, players would create heated discussions and even conflicts, thus attracting a bigger audience and raising excitement for future games. Duncan wanted to create a league with strong teams and focus on the personality of the players. He called ESL's production child content and compared it to Disney, while saying that he wants to make something serious and mature, like UFC. Thorin had a big pride in the fact that FLASHPOINT had a screenwriter from WWE working with players. In January 2020, when FLASHPOINT was announced, the community started to believe that ESL was now under a big threat. Soon enough, someone leaked a list of the organizations who already made that $2 million investment. The journalist quickly pointed out a very interesting fact. All these companies, even the ones who had European rosters, had their roots in the USA. Also, many orgs came there from big sports. For instance, Contact Gaming was owned by the son of the owner of the LA Dodgers, a legendary baseball club. Overall, FLASHPOINT raised $25 million. This amount consisted of the investments of Cloud9 and Immortals and fees by participating orgs. In March, FACEIT held the first LAN qualifier to FLASHPOINT, and it was a crucial moment when the public saw the first red flag. You see, initially, it was planned that the two strongest teams would play on FLASHPOINT, but in reality, as many as 5 teams got an invite to the league. Insiders said that the reason for so many teams going through with this is plain and simple. FLASHPOINT was in big need of teams. For instance, Big won that qualifier and became one of the first teams who initially got an invite to FLASHPOINT. But then ESL Pro League appeared to have a vacant spot for them, and so the Germans joined ESL without much hesitation. As a result, almost every FLASHPOINT team had one thing in common. Their orgs had pretty fat wallets, but sincerely weak teams. Although the league had $500,000 for first place, there were 0 teams from HLTV's top 10, and all the talks about Astralis appeared to be just talk. The Danish powerhouse stayed with ESL. In March 2020, the league officially started, and the viewership count was, to say the least, disappointing. The production was indeed very good, and the TOs sincerely tried to make the best content possible, but the stats don't lie. People were just not interested in watching this. Moreover, because of the COVID restrictions, they had to hold the final stage in the Los Angeles studio. Do you remember those smart plans to hold FLASHPOINTs on the same dates as ESL Pro League? Well, now that Counter-Strike had moved online, and all the teams could easily take part in both leagues, MIBR realized this pretty quickly and accepted an invitation from ESL. On May 5th, the league's creative director Thorin published his famous tweet: "FLASHPOINT will be the best CSGO tournament ever run, or I won't be a part of it. I take full responsibility for the outcome of the project and am pushing everyone as hard as it takes to accomplish greatness. I'm not here for the big check. It's about making a great future for Counter-Strike, and as soon as I suspect that's not possible, I'll no longer be involved." It looks like Duncan noticed that FLASHPOINT wasn't doing so well and wanted to cheer up his colleagues with this tweet. On June 8th, DK published an article with some critique of FLASHPOINT. Here's the main point he was making. The league promised a lot of drama and sincerely tried to create it, but they failed miserably because most of the teams were frankly weak. To make things worse, DK had zero idea on how to fix the situation. You might be thinking, what do you mean how to fix it? Just invite better teams. Well, alongside that $2 million fee, there was one more factor in play. You see, in that period, ESL hustled up and signed an exclusive contract with almost every strong team. It was the Louvre agreement that we've covered in one of our previous videos. The clearest example of it was with Astralis, who, as was later leaked, actually signed an early agreement with FLASHPOINT but jumped off the train because of a better offer from ESL. The league's future was already in serious doubt, and the last thing it needed was a scandal, not one built up in the studios by producers, but a real, dirty scandal. Flashpoint had a drama with CSPPA, the Counter-Strike Professional Players Association, a union of pro players in CS. Everything started amazingly with Flashpoint and CSPPA signing a great deal. The association made Flashpoint promise that they would set in stone the $2 million prize money for 2 years. It was like a reassurance for all the players that B-Site Incorporated is taking things seriously. If you don't understand anything we're talking about and don't see the sense in this reassurance, let us assure you that you're not alone. Someday we'll cover the CSPPA topic in full detail in another video, but for now, back to that partnership. This whole thing wasn't over with that prize pool guarantee. Flashpoint also had to pay yearly fees to the union, and they promised to keep it, just in case some players were injured during a tournament. It was $165,000 in the first season. Sadly, these two companies had a public fight. Here's what happened. As it turns out, a few months back, on February 7th, Flashpoint got contacted by a big monitor manufacturer with a sponsorship proposition. Since this deal was about the actual gear for the players, Flashpoint had to approve it with the CSPPA so the players wouldn't be coming into the tournament only to play with bad quality monitors from their sponsors. Flashpoint tried their best to make that deal happen and wrote to CSPPA, but got no response back. They wrote again and again, but the big union with dozens of pro players was so disorganized that they ignored Flashpoint's letters for a whole month. In time, the guys lost the last bits of hope they had and stopped writing those letters. CSPPA just never noticed that pile of emails they got from one of their partners. Also, CSPPA needed to approve a fine list for players. Yes, every TO has a list of fines for players and teams. It was CSPPA who insisted on approving fines with Flashpoint, excusing it with players' protection. Like, if the union won't check every fine, then the league would create a lot of stupid rules and players would suffer from that, so you have to approve every fine with us. Flashpoint agreed, but the monitor story had repeated itself. The TOs sent CSPPA the list of fines and never got a response. As a result, the league had 0 fines for the teams, and players started to show up late for games knowing there would be no punishment. Overall, the only 2 things that Flashpoint yielded from the partnership with CSPPA were losing a sponsor and allowing players to be late for games. Both these things cost the guys a lot of money. Can you guess when CSPPA finally woke up and started to respond to the letters? We're sure you got this right. It was the exact date when Flashpoint should have sent them $165,000. The league organizers were outraged. You ignored us for months, and now you dare to ask for money from us? By the way, there were also a lot of rumors that the union broke the deal where Fun Plus Phoenix almost bought Heroic roster, but it was never officially proven. As a response to CSPPA's request to pay them $165,000, Flashpoint sent them a big letter that got leaked by Double Tap journalists. Here's what was written in the end. Given the astounding difficulty we encounter when we ask you to take even the most basic action and the lack of demonstrable transparency, generally we have no choice but to conclude that this work is simply not being done by you. The union's response was short. Your allegations are groundless and you have to pay us anyway. That's the law. At this point, you might have a pretty simple and logical thought. $165K isn't much for a league with a $25 million budget. How's that such a big deal for them? Indeed, money wasn't really the problem. It's just that Flashpoint, who were planning to create some drama in studio, managed to get themselves into a real scandal. At that time, analytical companies published a review of Flashpoint Season 1. In 165 hours of streaming, the league got 8 million hours of watch time. In order to understand how small this number is, just compare it to this random dream hack from 3 years ago. The prize pool was 4 times smaller and the airtime was only 60 hours, but that event had the same 8 million hours of watch time. In October 2020, Flashpoint announced the second season of the league. The studio was set set in London, and all the matches had been switched to an online format. By the way, because of the studio being located in Britain, all the teams had to boot camp in Europe. In order to fix the first season's problems and make a stronger team list, Flashpoint invited Fnatic, Big, and OG. But here's the problem. These orgs didn't have to pay anything in order to get there, while all the others had to invest $2 million each. To make things worse, the partner teams showed some pretty bad results. On the very first day, 4 out of the 5 partners had fallen to the lower bracket, and this wasn't a good thing for the league's finances. The second season was a bit better than the first, but still, it was all clearly not enough. Moreover, after the season ended, the CSPPA scandal started its second turn, with Richard Lewis saying that the union had a shady deal with ESL to give a living hell to other TOs. In Lewis's words, this was the reason behind all the drama in summer. March 7, 2021 was the day when the creative director Thorin left the league, which was another huge step towards the total demise of Flashpoint. Duncan recorded a long podcast about his departure, and here are the main things he said. Although he broke his earning record with the first 2 seasons of Flashpoint, Thorin didn't forget about his promise to leave if this league wasn't the best tournament to ever happen in CSGO. In Duncan's words, he did everything he could, but the system they built just wasn't working. So he left, keeping his word. Thorin also talked about that comparison of ESL and Disney and his plans to make a UFC in Counter-Strike. Shields complained that he wasn't able to implement many of his ideas, so Flashpoint never reached its true potential in the media. He admitted that the level of the teams was a huge problem. In the podcast, Thorin asked a rhetorical question: how can you make any noise with a player like Asilion from Mad Lions? The answer is simple: you can't. He was another Tier 2 player with a very small potential to generate views and attract a new audience. Thorin said that almost every player was like that, and he couldn't yield much from them. But at the start, he was promised to have Astralis and a few more teams from the top 10. He also talked about the Astralis situation. He thinks that the Danes simply fooled Flashpoint's owners, and here's how they did it. At the start, Astralis signed an agreement to take part in Flashpoint, but only if there were at least 3 other top 10 teams. Then, Flashpoint happily hired Thorin, saying that they already secured Astralis. By the way, those American investors who paid $2 million each also thought their teams would be competing in a league with the Great Danes. But in Thorin's opinion, Astralis didn't have a single bit of intention to actually join Flashpoint, and that they signed that pre-agreement only to wave it before ESL's face and negotiate better terms for the upcoming season. And here's what Thorin thinks was the main problem of Flashpoint. Obviously, the league lacked good teams. It was impossible to invite someone strong because almost every org had an exclusive contract with ESL. So the only way to get better teams was to talk each partner into investing more money and gather not some Tier 3 or top 50 roster, but a strong Tier 1 team. Only Cloud9 tried to make this happen, but after all, they were the initial founders. Also, Thorin revealed that once Flashpoint really understood the mess they were in, they hired a few top managers and lost a few $100,000 on each of them. The idea was that these people would bring new sponsors and also talk to the existing partners about investing more money into buying stronger players like Nico, Crims, and Kerrigan. But sadly, these new managers didn't have any clue about how esports works, and so were no help to the league. And when Thorin talked to the partners himself, he realized one sad thing. These people from big sports don't understand a thing about CSGO. Some of them heard about Nico or Kerrigan from Thorin for the first time in their life. In the spring of 2021, Valve had entrusted Flashpoint to run a European RMR tournament. The community was pretty happy about it, because it was Faceit who ran the technical side of things. But unfortunately, they couldn't run the tournament without some big problems. And when NIP complained about a big packet loss in the match against Anonymous, the admins did nothing. Let's just say the scandal was pretty big, and everyone agreed that it was truly a Flashpoint fail. So in June 2022, FLASHPOINT officially declared that they were closed. This league had an initial budget of $25 million and were promoted as the UFC of CSGO. If you look at the big picture, you'll see that in its short lifespan, FLASHPOINT had encountered 5 difficult obstacles: the lockdown, partners being unwilling to invest in buying Tier 1 players, the conflict with CSPPA, not securing Astralis, and ESL having signed an exclusive agreement with almost every strong team. So what do you think about FLASHPOINT? Did this league really have a chance to change things in esports, or was the initial idea just not feasible? Let's chat about it in the comments. And as always, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe because you are watching CyberShoke. Bye for now.